Okay, I've got the right logo. I've got the right background now. So, Jarrod, you
Yes.
use StreamYard. Have you noticed that they now have, you can record each person's tracks individually now?
I noticed that, but I only noticed it in a negative way because another guy I know tried it and he was very displeased with it.
See, I've only done it once so far. So,
You'll have to let me know. You're ahead of me on this one, my friend.
So let me see. Yeah, I did it once, and it was a guy in Australia. His internet kept cutting out, so I don't know if it was his internet or something with the StreamYard. So we'll have to see.
You can never tell. You can never tell.
Yeah.
I was having trouble getting on the internet earlier this afternoon. About 20 minutes ago, I'm like, oh, it's always podcast day when the internet decides to flake out. Not the other times, it's like when I have to do my stupid job and stuff like that. It's like, no, it's when I want to do this thing I want to do and I can't do it now. So I actually told my kid he has to stop watching Netflix and he has to stop streaming video. If he wants to watch something this afternoon while Dad's recording, he's got to drag out Dad's dusty DVD collection and go through there and try and find something to watch. So
get out the old TV VCR combo, son.
Yeah. They're like the 3-in-1, the TV and the video cassette and the player. Yeah. You know, when people talk about the impermanence of things, I always cite video stores as an example of that. Nobody could have predicted that the video store would go away.
I miss it.
You know?
I miss it. I'm ready for it to return.
Okay, I want to plug my Ethernet cable in. Speaking of internet.
This is your first podcast.
You would think so. Every episode is my first podcast. It seems like. I swear to God, one of these days I'm going to get it. Oh, lost my mic for a second. I swear to God.
My mic sounds lost. Check one.
Swear to God, it seems like every episode's my first. Oh, Jesus. Well, you guys been up with me. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started with some G.I. Joe. If you guys are ready, then.
Heck yeah.
Ready.
I'm always ready.
All right. Let's do this then. Let's start the opening.
G.I. Joe, the Real American Headcast, is the code name for Aaron's daring, highly trained headcast. Its purpose? To podcast about G.I. Joe, Fighting Cobra, a ruthless terrorist organization determined to rule the world.
Don't know why my thing was cutting out. Anyways, welcome to G.I. Joe, a Real American Headcast, episode 47. I am your host, Aaron Moss, aka General Head, and as usual, I am not alone. Joining me I have my somewhat my usual brand of retrobates.
You're a couple of misfits, just a couple.
I stopped by the Land of Misfit Toys, the Land of Misfit Podcasters, and I picked up a couple of guests. Joining us, we have Jarrod Albrecht, aka the Yard Sale Artist.
That's a prescription for danger.
aka Death Probe.
All right. Love it. Love it. Happy to be back. I want to give a shout out to Heinz Koch.
Yes.
In the chat. And yeah, man, just gonna do some drawing for you today while we talk about 47. Man, I'm excited. I like 47 a lot. So
right on. Did you read it?
Yeah, I didn't read it, but I like it a lot.
Also joining us is Brad Abraham, aka Dr. Brainwave. And no, I don't have a sound for him yet. I had one, but we've changed him from Jarrod 2.0 to Dr. Brainwave, so I got to get a new sound for him.
I am sowing chaos in Discord throughout the Headcast universe. But thank you.
Hey, Brad, how you doing?
I am well, Aaron.
Good, good. And yes, as Jarrod mentioned, joining us in the chat so far, we have Heinz Koch. Am I pronouncing that right or wrong? Glad you could join us, sir, and or ma'am, and or whatever. I don't want to assume your humanity. But we are here to talk about some G.I. Joe, not to see who we can offend, though one usually follows the other. First up, we're going to talk about G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue 1. I'm sorry, 1. Where'd that come from? Issue 47. Cover date was May of 1986. On sale date was February the 11th, 1986. Cover price, 75 cents. The title was Sea Duel, written as usual by Larry Hama, penciler Rod Wiggum, inker Andy Mashitsky, letterer Joseph Rusin, colorist George Russos, editor Dennis O'Neil. And the cover credits, I am not quite sure who it was. Maybe it was
Beatty, Beatty, Zack, Beck, Beatty, Beatty, Zack, Zack, Beatty, Beatty, Zack, Zack, Beatty, 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 Zack, 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 Mike, Zack, Zack. Funny story, Aaron. I noticed in the complete collection I have, it's only Zack given credit on this one.
Ooh.
So he might have inked himself on this one. I'm not sure. I have to talk to my good friend John Beatty, who signed my book here, and see about that.
Did you hear that? I think you dropped something there.
Oh, there it is.
Names.
But yeah, I did notice it just says Mike Zack. Like the next couple say Zack, and then Beatty joins, and then it starts saying Zack and Beatty again. So I don't know if that's a misprint in the book or if there was maybe just a spell where Zack inked himself for a bit.
Yeah, I pulled that from Mike's Amazing World of Comics.
Did Mike's Amazing World say Beatty was on this?
Yeah, that was from
interesting. So who knows? Who knows?
No.
Well, John would know. I should probably ask him.
Yeah. If someone knew.
Well, because I'm fancy and et cetera, et cetera.
But so maybe Beatty and Zack, maybe just Zack. I don't know. We'll have to find out at some point. Yeah, I'm looking at the actual book, and yeah, it doesn't say anything other than I'm not even seeing Zack's signature on there. So yeah, I don't know. Anyways, it's drawn by somebody. Wow, English is hard. This was reprinted in G.I. Joe Volume 5 trade paperback and the G.I. Joe Complete Collection. You said it was number 5, Jarrod?
Correct. Volume 5.
Yeah, see, the Mike's Amazing World doesn't list the complete collections on there, so let's go and take a look at the cover as we normally do. And again, sorry for those at home. I did not get my I forgot to do my screen prints that I've been doing so you can see these things. So I'll hold them up to the camera. There's the cover of it. We have Hawk, Wetsuit, and Beachhead on a brand new Devilfish. Again, this is another product placement, another New Joe's and toy intro book. And we got 3 of them on the cover. 2 Joes and a toy or a vehicle. But anyways, for those listening to the podcast, like I said, we've got the two new Joes along with Hawk on the Devilfish, and they're all firing their weapons. Wetsuit and Hawk are firing guns. Beachhead is firing the guns of the Devilfish. As they're fighting at somebody, we see some blasts in the sky behind them. That is the cover. So let's get some thoughts on this. Let's go ahead and start with, let me get me off the screen, Jarrod.
Man, I love this cover. This cover just kind of screams like 1980. Was it six? Yeah, 1986. I'm a big Beachhead fan. He's my favorite Joe. So we got Beachhead front and center, which is a big plus for me. And as you said, this is sort of that. This was probably the what I would consider the most glorious push from the figure side. You know, I came to G.I. Joe from the figures. And so that you had your original run, and then there was this push in 86 where they added like Wetsuit and this version of Hawk, Beachhead, leather neck, just a really strong lineup. Quick Kick, I think, shows up about 85, 86. Just it's a really strong sort of, I guess it would be the third-ish wave of figures. But anyways, this has just got a lot of action going on it. You know, Zek is in top form. I'm a big fan of the Devilfish. I had that as well. So I was just really excited about each and every one of these characters, especially from a figures point of view. And then the action on the cover is just so cool and so very G.I. Joe that I love it. I just love it.
Very nice. And also real quick, before I move on to Brad, we have some more people joining us in the chat. So Heinz says his last name is pronounced Cook. And we also have Jim Meal joining us and AU Kathy 2418. Just watching from the sidelines. And
hello.
Says, Jarrod being fancy, showing off the bound collection. That's what he does. Well, before I go on, I want to thank you guys all for joining us. And let me see real quick. There we are. And Brad, what are your thoughts on the cover?
Well, I think Jarrod kind of covered everything I was going to. So in the Department of Redundancy department, I'll add my 2 cents. It's a cool cover. It's maybe not for me as iconic as number 46, but really, and as Jarrod said, anytime a cover features new toys, it's always a real treat. And I remember this one getting a commercial too. If you search on YouTube, you'll probably find it because they repurposed a lot of the animation for the commercial feature, the Devilfish and the figures. And just my memory's a little hazy, as it is with anything 80s these days as I get older and further away from the 80s. But I think this may have been a case where we were introduced to these new characters in the comic before they made their debut in toy stores. The way things always kind of worked out. And also, this is their first introduction into G.I. Joe media before the cartoon got to them, because the next season of the cartoon didn't kick off until the fall of 86. So you would have met Beachhead and Wetsuit and General Hawk in that new series. I think it was the I hate to say it, the Serpentor Arise series miniseries. We'll get to that later. But
I'm sorry you had to pain yourself saying that.
It did not roll off the tongue the way I had hoped it would. And, off the tongue, onto the floor, roll out the door, close the door behind it. Ironically, I think maybe because of this cover and being featured in the book, Beachhead and Wetsuit and General Hawk may have been the last of the G.I. Joe action figures ever bought. Because the kind of what I'd call classic military, close enough to real world military that they were interesting to me. Once they started going a little deeper into the fantastical elements and the sci-fi type, including sci-fi, the action figure character, it was kind of getting away from the realism of the previous years. And I use realism with air quotes because G.I. Joe has always been on the sort of pushing the edge of the realism envelope. But, I kind of think of Beachhead, who I'm a fan of as well as Jarrod, and Wetsuit both were kind of along the lines of the last off where the military figures were kind of identifiable as being from the then present day military. You got later ones like Tunnel Rat and Hit and Run, but things a little more day glow from here, and then a lot more day glow from there. But that's all in the future. But it's a great cover. I remember the day I got it, and I didn't even have to reread this issue because I know it so well because this is one of my favorites. But we'll get into that later.
Very nice. And yeah, you guys have said everything that needs to be said about it. I mean, it's a great cover. It introduces, like I said, introduces 2 new Joes. It shows us a new toy. And yeah, we get General Hawk, has General Hawk on here after his recent promotion, as we've talked about previously. And yeah, it's just a very dynamic cover. It kind of shows what's going on inside the book. We got a big old battle. So yeah, great cover. Let's get some Yojo Colas on this. Again, out of 1 to 5 Yojo Colas, 1 being this sucks, to 5 being something that you want to hang on your wall. Let's start with Brad this time. Dr. Brainwave, out of 1 to 5 Yojo Colas. How many give it?
This one gets 3. Why? Because honestly, most things on a scale of 1 to 5 are 3, aren't they? I mean, 3 is good. 3 is passive. It is a fun cover for a great issue. It doesn't, it doesn't embarrass itself. It doesn't distinguish itself either. I think most of the things I've read and watched and listened to over the last several years have been 3s, frankly. So maybe I'm just being a hard critic, but I like it. I wouldn't hang it on the wall like I would issue 46 or a couple of upcoming covers, but this one is certainly a 3.
I know the one you're hang on your walls is issue 49.
Yes.
Where they're building Serpentor.
Absolutely.
And
It's a
Jarrod.
spoiler.
Sorry,
That's
I didn't want to ruin anything. Jarrod, again, out of 4 or 5 Yojo Colas, because I know you, Zach, and Beatty covers get 4 or 5.
Yeah, it starts at 4 if Zach's on the cover. This is a 5 for me, but I'm fully aware that this could be a nostalgia 5 and a Beachhead's my favorite Joe 5. This is just, again, it's fun doing this show with you because it really highlights to me how much I kind of forgot, or maybe you never actually read in the comics, because I was more of a toy guy. Like I watched a little.
You didn't read the comics?
No. It's like I had them. It's like I bought them, but I just, all my memories of Joe are the toys. And so when I see this, I had all those figures. I love the Devilfish. I remember putting these exact trio of people on the Devilfish. So I mean, it just hits a nostalgia nerve for me. So it's a 5 all the way. I totally hang it on my wall.
And also, the people in the chat, if you want to give your ratings, we can read them on the air also. As far as me, and another thing I was going to say that Brad had mentioned, yes, this was they did a TV advertisement for this issue. I played the promo at the end of last episode. So yeah, that's another reason I remember this cover, is because I remember the commercial for it. But my 1 to 5 Yojo Colas, I'm going to give it 4. Again, I'm going to go right between the two of you, snuggle right in, and make a Yojo Cola sandwich. Oh, wait a minute. It's not.
That sounds sweet.
It's all that Yojo Cola. But let's go ahead and move on to the actual issue before I offend myself. The synopsis for this issue, which I stole from yojo.com. Joe's a rescued Zartan who is posing as Ripcord after Doc sedates him. He is rushed back to the pit. On Cobra Island, Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow fight to get off the island. They still have Cobra hydrofoil, but close to escaping, the ship is wrecked, and Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow are thrown into the ocean with tons of sharks. After Snake Eyes is rescued, they see Storm Shadow walk out of the ocean, only to be shot by the Baroness. So that is G.I. Joe issue 47. So let's go and get some thoughts on this. I've got a lot of thoughts. So let's go ahead and start with, actually, real quick, over in the chat, we also have a former member of our team joining us, Pat Sampson. He's decided to grace us with his presence. Hey, Pat, glad to see you, buddy. And he gives it a 5. Hines says he used to trace the covers on thin paper. Hines gives it a 5, and Jim gives it a 4. Great action and intensity. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your thoughts. Speaking of thoughts, Mr. Sergeant Slaughterjar there. Jarrod, do you have thoughts on this issue?
I do. I really enjoyed it. I've really greatly enjoyed the entire Zartan mixed with which one is it again, Aaron? Airborne, Ripcord, Ripborn, Aircord. I can't keep them straight.
I know.
I can't. But no, I really enjoyed it. But it did make me laugh.
The book.
I actually did read this one, I swear. This part right here really did make. And for those of you who are listening, not watching, it's the part in the story where Doc has taken. It is Ripcord, isn't it? I've just outsmarted myself. Yeah, it's Ripcord.
Yes, it's Ripcord.
He's taking care of Ripcord, and like he half faces back into Zartan and then faces back, and Doc's like, I gotta get my eyes checked. Did I just see? No, I'm like, Doc, are you the most dupable person on the G.I. Joe team or what? I mean, clearly that's something weird just happened, and he's just like, I guess my eyes are playing tricks on me. I'm like, come on, man. But aside from that's my silly moment. Aside from that, I mean, it's so hard to describe this because I'm being very visual, but there's so much action in here. On the very next page, you have the crash landing of the helicopter into the Rattlers. You've got Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow doing their stuff, working their way to the beach to escape. You've got the Devilfish and the torpedo sleds kind of going head to head. You got people shooting from the beach. You've got freaking sharks. You've got eels being dropped in on this. It's just so much going on. It is a wild ride, and it is just totally fun to read. And the glorious thing about it is, like you said in your recap, really the only sort of bump moments is, we still have the Ripcord Zartan swap out, and then Baroness shooting Storm Shadow in the chest. Aside from that, it's like 22 pages of just adventure, just straight up adventure and action, and it's super cool. And I'll leave. If I left anything, I'll leave it for Brad. But it's weird because it's one of those issues. It's they packed a lot in, but like story wise, not a lot happened. But there's a lot of adventure. I'll leave it at that. We'll let Brad weigh in.
They crammed a lot of gram.
They did something.
Speaking of cram and gram,
it was fun.
Dr. Brainwave, your thoughts?
Jarrod stealing my thunder again. And again, I'm going to have to go back to being Jarrod 2.0. I think I can't compete with that because he just articulated, again, pretty much everything I was going to say. But let me say some things anyway. I kind of like to call this issue Ant 43 G.I. Joe, the HBO series, because it ends them killing off a major character pretty decisively. In 43, we lost the Softmaster to a rocket, which was pretty clear. And here we lose Storm Shadow, taking bullets in the chest from the Baroness, him falling to the sandy beach, clearly dead. I mean, we see the bullets hit him. He's not walking away from that.
Never seen it.
This isn't a plane crash or an explosion where the death happens off screen, which is a big trick and trope in comic books oftentimes. Or if you see a body, then they're probably still alive. But in this case, over the next couple of issues, we see the body. So there's no question about it. The guy's dead. And that's pretty final for a comic. And, especially a major popular character. And now we know how it all turns out. But back in 86, reading it, you're thinking, my God, they just killed Storm Shadow off. And there was this tiny little party. It was like, oh, how does he come back from this one? Because they can't kill off one of the most important characters in the narrative at that point. So I think that's the big moment of this issue. That's the one thing that people will really respond or remember this issue for. But as Jarrod said, overall, this is a first-rate issue. It picks up immediately after 46 ends. So we're still in the middle of the Snake Eyes Storm Shadow incursion onto Cobra Island, and it just piles on the action. They finally bring my all-time favorite Cobra, Dr. Brainwave, into the mix. We get some, that was sarcasm, by the way. we get new toys, we get new figures. This whole 3-issue story is just such an all-timer for me because I know issue 48 continues it, and so does 49 into 50, but those sort of feel more like a coda to this wall-to-wall action story, 48 in particular. And I gotta say, I'm really kind of seeing my memory here to recall if I ever enjoy this comic again as much as I do in this 3-issue arc, because it just bats 1,000. But a question I ask is, does this issue work better as the intro to Dr. Brain Fart, Mindbender, than issue 44, which I know on the episode that we talked about it, a lot of us particularly liked as a story. I think I said back then that I tend to skip over 44 on my rereads. I go 43 then to 45 onwards. So if you take that approach, this is Dr. Mindbender's big intro, which kind of works. It doesn't make him any better a character, but it gives him a little more to do than stand around looking goofy, his cape and monocle and porn. And of course, the Joes we do get here are a couple of later stage classic ones, as I said off the top, discussing the cover, and Jarrod's already spoken Beachhead. So I know he had a much more strong character voice in the TV show. I don't remember him showing up a lot in the main line comic book, although I think he and Wetsuit may have been from Special Missions a little more. I feel like Special Missions, once it hit its stride, kind of became that comic where Larry and Herb were able to explore the more grounded military type of storytelling, which the comic was originally, before it got a little more elaborate. And I think Beachhead had a few more moments to shine in that book. Jarrod did better than that, but I do think that Jarrod's right, says this is so action heavy. There's not really a lot of story, but it's just action and character beats, aside from Doc hallucinating Ripcord turning into Zartan, because why would he make mention of that? So we know who Zartan is. Zartan is the master of disguise. Oh my gosh, Ripcord's turning into Zartan. I wonder what's wrong with Ripcord. It's like, no, Doc, you're a doctor. Get your prescription checked. Yeah. But
so disappointed in Doc.
It is.
Very much so.
All there. Yeah, but they do lose some character beats, but that's okay. I mean, this is sort of the third issue in this arc. So we've had 2 issues of a lot of character stuff, a lot of character building, a lot of stuff revealed about Zartan being involved in hard match deaths. So a big bit of backstory drops, and now this is sort of the fallout of it. So you'll excuse it, and because there's really not what I can say about this issue, I don't like, because I pretty much like all of it. But the biggest thing to say about this issue, and this is a true story, on page, which page is it here? 10. Page 12, third panel down, you have Dr. Mindbender and the 2 eels, there we go, on their sea sleds racing Intercept. And this guy here, Dr. Brainwave, aka Dr. Mindbender, says there's the Jeep captured hovercraft, referring to what Snake Eyes and Rumshot stole, but it's actually a hydrofoil. And this was the one and only time I actually wrote a letter to Marvel attempting to claim a no prize. And for those you don't know or don't remember, a no prize was a letter you'd write in explaining away a mistake that was clearly made in editorial, but making it not a mistake. And my excuse for it was because Dr. Minder was new to Cobra. He wasn't 100% familiar with all their equipment. So from his point of view, it could have been a hovercraft, not a hydrofoil. Plus, he had a monocle on and he was on a boat, and it's kind of hard to focus on things. So that was my explanation. And I sent the letter in, and I never got a response, and I got no prize, which means I kind of did get a no prize. So that's my claim to fame with this particular issue. That is a 100% true story, and I will just leave it at that.
Just touch on a couple of things that Brad said as I'm forgetting them. Issue 43, let's not forget also the deaths of Candy and Billy. And of course, we cannot forget about Chuck, the truck driver.
Oh,
I need to know more about Chuck. I really do. Hey, quick question, Aaron, because you again, I'm a toys guy, but you know G.I. Joe front to back better than me. I don't remember them ever making those sea sleds for Cobra.
Yeah.
Did they make them and I just never got one or never saw one?
Yeah, no, they had the toy.
Okay, I've never seen one. Like
yeah,
ever.
The same wave.
And now I had the hydrofoil because that was awesome. but I never saw one of those little sea sleds, like sort of devilfishy size, you know?
Right. Yeah.
I've
no,
never
they-
even seen one. That's crazy.
Yeah. In fact, I had one of the sea sleds.
Wow. I would like bet money that they never came out. It blows my mind. Like in all my childhood and all my years of yard sailing, you'd think I would have stumbled across one, but
Yeah, you think. But yeah, no, yeah, they had the sea sled. Yeah. Yep. And nice. That's about the time I started getting into the toys, and see, I had one of those. So, yep. From the chat, Jim says that Larry was hitting on all cylinders at this time in the comic. And to follow up on my thoughts on Brad, so it sounds like we may be looking for a replacement for Brad here soon. So I kid. My thoughts on this, and again, you guys have commented on some of this. I'm going to make some more comments. Very action-packed and a very busy splash page. Love it. Not a big deal, but when did Baroness pick up Buzzer? Because again, Buzzer was in a different place than Baroness and Mindbender and Destro and all them. Another thought that, again, you guys have all mentioned already. Doc think he's seeing things when he sees Ripcord turn into Zartan, and he doesn't make a bigger deal about it. Last issue, we had Spirit finding a problem, and then we have Doc finding a problem. Mysterious cargo on the helicopter. I love the disgusted tone I'm hearing with Storm Shadow when he goes, they've managed to wreck every aircraft on the strip. When him and Snake Eyes are they're going to steal an airplane. And meanwhile, when the Baroness lands their broken helicopter, and they destroy almost every aircraft on the strip. I love just
it's a great drawing too. Like, the energy in that drawing is incredible.
But yeah, I can hear Storm Shadow's voice in there, and just they managed to destroy every aircraft on the island. There it is.
Since Snake Eyes can't speak, Storm Shadow has to be like extra sassy.
Yeah. Yes, very much so. Excuse me. And then we have Doc telling Hawk there's something wrong with Ripcord, but they send him to the pit anyways. I know Jim just said, Larry was hitting on all cylinders. And again, as I said, I love Larry, but come on, man. Page 9, warning, new figure alert. We have Beachhead and Wetsuit plus the Devilfish.
Woo-hoo.
Also on the same page, I like where Hawk says that if their roles reversed, Snake Eyes would come after him. When they're wondering, why are they going after Snake Eyes? Page 10, more new vehicles, the torpedo transports, aka the Cobra Hydro sleds. And someone was mentioning about, it was Brad mentioning about Dr. Mindbender calling the hydrofoil the wrong name. They called several things the wrong name in here. They never refer to the sleds by the right name. And then the hydrofoil. So I don't think Dr. Mindbender cares for accuracy, but as a dentist and interrogator, you'd think he would go for accuracy, but what do I know? I love the Cobra standing around discussing Major Blood in his poetry.
Oh, how did I forget to mention that? In the middle of a battle.
That was fantastic. I love that. Page 11, Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow taking on all the Cobras. Page 14, I forgot to write down who said this, but someone said about the blades being sharp. Thank you, Captain Obvious. It was the eels when Storm Shadow jumped after with his swords. One was like, those blades are sharp. Yeah, thank you, Captain Obvious, for that. How would we have known? Page 17, Storm Shadow fighting the eels underwater. Fantastic. My next note here is just Snake Eyes versus Shark. Need I say anything more about that?
Don't need anything more.
Page 20, as you guys have mentioned, Baroness shooting Storm Shadow. He comes out of the surf, never to be heard from again. And my last note on this, and this is it's got 5 question marks at the end of it in all capitals. Why is Ripcord going to the pit? 2 Joes have noticed something strange, and yet they're sending him into the pit. Why? I love Larry, but why send him to the pit when they've got two people mentioning there's something going on here? Send him to the pit. We'll figure it out later. I don't know.
Well, they will figure it out later.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my one gripe for the issue is that, last issue, Spirit noticed something strange about the wounds in his shirt, the holes in his shirt not lining up with his actual wounds. And then this time, Doc's, in fact, Doc even mentions to Hawk, there's something strange with Ripcord. We'll deal with it later. Come on, guys. Anyways, beyond those little complaints, I love this issue. It was fantastic. Like we were talking about earlier, I think part of it that sears in my head is that, like I say, there was a commercial for it. Again, as I said, I picked these up later, but this was a great, not much going on as far as story progression, but there's a lot in this issue. There's a whole lot of action and all that good stuff going on in this issue. So it's fantastic. So let's go ahead and move on to the next section, unless someone else has anything else to say. He says he pauses for time. Okay, there it is. And here's our next section.
The real American hero.
See, I'm trying to be more professional and getting this going, sounding good as we're doing it. This is the real American hero. Again, something else I stole from a much better show. This is a Joe or Cobra or someone else that's done something exceptional or that deserves to be praised. This month, I'm going to start off, and I'm going to give my real American hero to Storm Shadow, just for fighting off the Cobra eels and the sharks, and just to be weighed out by Baroness with a gun. I just think Storm Shadow, since we're never going to hear from him again, deserves the real American. Quit laughing, Brad. Storm Shadow deserves the real American hero. Brad, Dr. Brainwave. So you're not in Jarrod's shadow. Who do you give the real American hero to?
I shall always be in Jarrod's shadow.
Okay.
You know what? I'm going to give it to the Baroness because she doesn't do a lot. What she does is what nobody else has been able to do up to this point, which is she's been able to kill a ninja by shooting him. That definitely, we never see him again. He is spoken of again. So I think that is the most effective moment in the issue and the most surprising one in the issue, and it belongs to the Baroness. So you give it to the Baroness for that.
And that's what you get for bringing a sword to a gunfight. Jarrod, do you have a real American hero for this issue?
I do. My head says it's Snake Eyes, but my heart says it's Beachhead because he's my favorite Joe. And like Brad said, he doesn't get to show up in the comics a lot. So how many more opportunities am I going to have to give it to Beachhead? Did he do anything particularly special? Not really, but hey, it's Beachhead and I'm going to give it to him.
There you go. That's all that counts. It's what you feel. So you may be wrong, but very... And I like your Sergeant Slaughter. It's coming up very nice.
Thank you, sir.
So we'll move on to our next little section then. And again, as we go along, if you guys in the chat have anything to throw in, definitely throw out your comments or your likes or your real American hero, and I can always read it off. The next section is the page of art. Dr. Brainwave, if you could have any page of art in this book and take it home and hang it up on your wall, which page would it be?
Well, honestly, I would happily take any page from this book. I don't think there's a weak page on it. And I think the splash page is beautiful. It's a great example of some 3-point perspective in the illustration with the whale in the foreground and Cobra Island in the background, and you see the fire bat and the chopper flying overhead. It's really dynamic. The whole escape from the island is great. The battle under the water with sharks, again, also great. But I'm going to have to say, if I could take one, it would be page 20, because Baroness kills Storm Shadow decisively and with a great degree of finality, and it's just really well illustrated. It just kind of pops up, and as soon as you turn to the page, you know what's going to happen. But there's just a real great sense of of composition to it, and how the action just kind of flows. It pretty much just ends the issue right there. Just boom, that's it. If that had been the last page in the issue, then it would have been even more shocking.
Very nice. Yeah, I had that down as a possible contender because, yeah, that was a great page. Jarrod, which page of art would you like out of this book?
If I'd read it, I'd probably have a better idea. But if I
okay, now for my
no, Brad, right? I mean, every page is just awesome. It's really tough in this one, but I gotta go. Like, I gotta have a beachhead page, right? So that's a must.
Of course.
But then you're all like, well, Snake Eyes fights a shark. And I'm like, well, I got to have that. Well, guess what, folks? It's all on the same page. You get Snake Eyes fighting a shark and 2 panels of beachheads. And one of them, he's doing the rat-tat-tat-tat. So you got to love that. So I'm going Snake Eyes fights a shark with some beachhead appearances as well.
Very nice. And that was the other one of the other pages I had. Luckily, I had 3 pages to be on the safe side. So my third page, my other pick, is the page right before that one, story-wise, page 17, where we have Storm Shadow fighting the Cobra Eels in the water. We show Snake Eyes swimming away. We have the, there it is. We have the sharks approaching. That would be my page, just because, yeah, and like Brad said, almost any page out of this book was a good page this time. So a little hard to pick, but there you go. Let me see. I didn't pull anything out for the post box to pit this time. I'll add that in post-production after I'm done. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. I'm going to learn some English. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with the cartoon. If you had to get a refill or anything, or...
Yeah. Although I would like at some point to point out the ad for Marvel for the new universe.
We can do that.
All right. I'll fill in for Kevin there. He's always got the original issues.
Yep. Yeah, there's a couple of nice pages in here. There's also the one of Captain America, The Hunt for the Scourge. A nice little ad.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and get back into the show. Welcome back from the break. So before we go on to the cartoon, Kevin's not with us. He's off doing life and stuff. So Brad mentioned that not only is he going to be Jarrod 2.0, but he's going to fill in for Kevin. And he wanted to mention a page of the ads.
The fun thing about flipping through the original issues is you get all the ads. So you get ads for comic book stores that possibly don't exist anymore. It kind of sends you on a little internet search to see, because I want to see if Blaine's Comics in Stoneham, Massachusetts, which isn't too far from me, is still around. But the one ad that really leaps out to me is, I'll hold it up. The people who are listening in, they're going to miss it, which is why they should really tune into the live broadcast. But it's an ad for the new universe, which, if you remember, in 1986, the 25 years of Marvel, they created a whole new universe of stories and worlds and characters that became very memorable and very much beloved to this day. So I can't even say it with a straight face. It says 1961, the Marvel Universe, 1986, the new universe. It all begins this summer. And they should have added a disclaimer saying, and it all ends next summer, because nobody buys the books.
I bought those books.
Jarrod was the one.
I bought a few issues of Mark Hazard. I think that's the only one that had any appeal to me at that age. And
I was a big Spitfire and the Troubleshooters fan myself.
Yeah. And I actually, they famously killed off Mark Hazard, the titular Merc of the Merc comic book series in the last issue too. So, which was actually probably the most dignified way to go out of the universe. Anyway, they tried, but there's the fun of these issues is to really kind of go through it and sort of just see the things that were being advertised to you at the time. And that's something I think a lot of modern comic book advertising lacks. The new stuff's a little too slick. This has got this kind of neat little, almost like a lo-fi little rent approach to it. So yeah. Like there's this really nice ad for Westfield Comics in Madison, Wisconsin, and they have like a drawing of a little like a little village type house, but you look at the address of 6515 Grand Teton Plaza. I'm like, I don't think it was a little Adobe hut sitting in the parking lot. It was probably just a storefront, but they were having a pretty cool back issue sale at the time. They were having a back issue sale every issue that they advertised it, I think. So.
Yeah, I've actually bought from some of these. I think it was Mile High, and I forget which other ones. Back in the day, I bought some of these back issues. So their ads worked.
Yeah.
And there was also, as we was talking about during the break, the Captain America ad for the Scourge. Very nice.
I had a question for both of you then. Did you ever order anything from an ad in a comic book and either have it be 100% to your satisfaction or make you go, what a ripoff? Like, did you do the Sea Monkeys thing or anything like that?
I didn't order anything other than comics, and then I did do the was it Camp de Olympia or whatever it is. In fact, I think there was an ad in this book for that. Maybe not. The Camp de Olympia where you sold things. I did that, but I never actually ordered an actual product from a comic. Jarrod?
Same here. The only thing I remember ordering from was back issues from East Coast Comics, and other than that, I can't remember ordering anything out of there. I wish my brother was here because he probably did. But he and I remember we ordered some back issues from East Coast Comics when we lived in Germany. Remember, it was like 6 to 8 weeks delivery back then. And if you lived in Germany, it was like someday, and it was one of those things where we had ordered them and I think it took about seriously maybe 6 to 8 months, and we'd forgotten, which made it better when it came in the mail because we were like, what is this? I forgot. But that's off the trail. But no, I can't remember ordering anything off of there. No, I guess I failed the comic community.
We're used to it. That's right.
Yeah. I mean, if I'd read them, I might have seen these advertisements.
And also from the chat, Heinz says that Westfield Comics, he ordered from them once.
I don't think I ever ordered comics through a comic book ad. I always ended up just going to a store, and it would give me an excuse to go to the store. Anytime I get shanghaied to go off to visit family somewhere, as soon as I got to grandma's house or my aunt and uncle's house, I'd grab the yellow pages and I'd flip through, look to see if there was a local comic book store, and I'd say, can someone drive me to 1438 Grand Teton Way? I need to go look for comics.
Yeah, I ordered the Mask series from one of these, and I forget what else. I know I ordered some other books from some of these in-house comic or these in-ad comic books. So,
well, I will say that while it can be somewhat unreliable and a dicey prospect ordering merchandise advertised through a comic book, that aspect still holds true today because a book I ordered off of eBay has been lost in the mail for the last 3 weeks, and I'm really ticked off about it. I've opened a case. The U.S. Postal Service is on it, and that copy of James Dick Deliverance with the movie tie-in cover of John Voight and Burt Reynolds will be mine.
Here's open. So moving on to our next segment, we are moving on to
wherever there's trouble. G.I. Joe is there. G.I. Joe, American hero. G.I. Joe is there. It's G.I. Joe against Cobra, the enemy, fighting to save the day. He never gives up. He's always there, fighting for freedom over land and air. G.I. Joe, G.I. Joe is there.
G.I. Joe is the code name for America's daring, highly trained Special Mission Force. Its purpose, to defend human freedom against Cobra, a ruthless terrorist organization determined to rule the world.
He never gives up, he'll stay till the fight's won. G.I. Joe will dare. G.I. Joe, American hero. G.I. Joe.
Yeah, I don't know why it cuts out in the middle of the song.
I heard the whole thing.
Did you? Oh, okay. Well, maybe just me. Maybe I'm going deaf. Anyways, now it's time to look at the cartoon. This episode was entitled Bazooka Saw a Sea Serpent. Director was John Gibbs and Terry Lennon. Writer, Mary Screens. She also wrote the Rocket Red Glare episode and the upcoming Iceberg Goes South. This first aired October 31st, 1985. The synopsis. While camping, Bazooka sees a Cobra flight pod gets eaten by a giant sea serpent. In reality, the sea serpent is a Cobra submarine planning to steal everything it devours. But when it goes out of control, the sea serpent goes on a rampage, and the Joes must stop it from destroying New York. That is Bazooka Saw a Sea Serpent. So let's go ahead and mix things up a little bit. This time I'm going to start out. I know someone's got notes back there in the background. Oh, I'm telling you. We're going to read my thoughts. And then I'll let the other guys go. Again, I've got a few notes. At first, when I first started watching this, I'm like, I don't have very many notes on this, but I've got more than I thought. I do love Alpine and Bazooka's friendship. They're one of the great friendships of G.I. Joe, in my opinion. I think it would have been funny if it'd been Firefly on the Trouble Bubble when Bazooka said he saw a firefly or saw fireflies. I thought that would have been a little bit funnier. Wouldn't work for the story, but it would have been funny. So my question is for Alpine, after the fatal fluffies, the germs, the synthoids, he's going to doubt a sea serpent. I don't know. Maybe he hasn't read all the files. It reminds me of an issue of Batman I read once back in the early 90s. It was like a standalone book or something like that. And there was something about aliens coming to Earth. And Batman either Batman or Alfred had questioned whether there was aliens on Earth or if aliens could actually come to Earth. I'm like, you fight alongside a couple of them in the just what the hell?
John Jones.
I forget the book offhand, but like your best friend, Superman, John Jones. Those
Superman,
are two.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Anyways, things like that just kind of throws me back a second. Cobra Commander talks like Professor Braxton, or at least to me, it sounded like Professor Braxton was the one that got swallowed. But from the image on the screen, it looked like it was a trooper. So maybe I'm misunderstanding the conversation, or I don't know. And then we get Bazooka. And again, as we've talked about before, in the cartoon, Bazooka is portrayed much simpler, I guess is a good word for it. Duke wants to talk. Again, he appears to be too stupid to be a Joe. But then again, thinking about the issue that we covered with both Spirit and Doc seeing something strange and still letting Rip go to the pit. Maybe Bazooka's not that stupid after all. I don't know, maybe. Cobra Commander was swallowed by his own creation. I like that. When the Cobra Commander and the troopers get captured, will you work? Do I have a choice? Negative. I guess so then. And then Cobra Commander's like, say no, see what happens. It's just very classic Cobra Commander to me. And I do like the Dobie Gillis reference. Was probably lost on a lot of the kids out there. When Quick Kick was asked if he'd work, he goes, work. Again, Dobie Gillis was an old TV show that my mom watched that I watched on reruns. And his best friend Maynard, who's played by the same guy that played Gilligan, or would say work around here, work. So I like that reference. I wasn't a few that caught it, but yeah, that would really have to suck to watch a news report about a sea cruise being attacked by a sea serpent, and then to realize that, oh crap, that's the boat I'm on. Yeah, that would suck. I love that the other Cobras aren't too quick to run out and rescue Cobra Commander when they're sitting there talking, and Destro and the Baroness, and they're like, what do we do about Cobra Commander? We'll let the Joes work it out, and then we'll go in and take care of things afterwards. And my question for the group, I guess, is exactly what are the prisoners sorting for? because I don't see them sort anything out. They're picking stuff up, looking at it, and then it looks like they're just dropping it. Oh, Jared got notes, so we'll
I have it in my notes. Let's see if I can find it. I said it's on my notes. It says, I'm not sure what work is exactly being done. It seems like they're like spreading things around. Like I don't know what they're doing.
So I'm glad I'm not the only one that was confused by that.
But doesn't that sum up most work? It's just you're moving things around. You have no idea why you're doing it, but they're paying you to.
Touche. I work for
I keep
IRS,
thinking about George Costanza carrying around that accordion Penske file. He did literally nothing with except put it in an accordion folder.
I love the idea of the Mauler being stuck in traffic. For some reason, that tickled me. And maybe it's a bit of a coloring error. I don't know. When the whale gets tossed over, Alpine looked more white or Hispanic than he did black at that point. He was in the water, bobbing in the water.
Yeah, like I think his hair, like, shouldn't he have like an afro? He had like, I don't know. The hair didn't make sense to me.
And his skin was a lighter tone. And just someone messed up somewhere. And then I like when they took the photo at the end in front of the sea serpent, like the big catch. I like that. It made me chuckle. So let's go ahead and move on to Dr. Brainwave. We're gonna make Jared wait with his notes just because he has paper and he's wrestling.
They're gonna make Jared wait. We're gonna make Jared wait. Jared has to bring it all home.
And that way you're not in Jared's shadow again. See, I'm looking out for you, Brad.
Exactly. I get my moment in the sun. First, I would like a T-shirt, please, with the logo for Bar and Harbor Yacht Club Restaurant, because I don't know if anybody noticed that the Bar and Harbor Yacht Club Restaurant is horribly misspelled. They spelled yacht, Y-A-C-A-H-T, and they spelled restaurant, R-E-S-T-A-R-U-A-N-T. So a logo with that, it would be the most obscure thing to wear to a G.I. Joe convention anywhere. And you just hope somebody would say,
I love it.
Okay,
I love it.
Nice catch, Rat. Nice catch.
It's funny, and I'm sure it was really frustrating to the writers and creators of the show, because that misspelled sign really takes you out of the taut realism of Bazooka saw a sea serpent. But it happens, it happens in TV and film. There's always some mistake happens in the pipeline, and you just have to live with it. And it stinks. And when you have budgets and deadlines, you can't go back and reshoot or reanimate. You just have to swallow your pride and know full well that 37 years later, some smart ass on a podcast is going to roast you for it. But really, this episode, really with any G.I. Joe episode, I expect serpents and magic carpets and ghost planes and fatal furries anyway. So this wasn't that big a stretch, Expect the beast from 20,000 fathoms, and that's what we get here, albeit one that has a plausible, for G.I. Joe anyway, explanation is another Cobra super weapon. But had it been an actual sea serpent, I probably wouldn't have been very surprised either, because that's just the type of show this is, and we love the show for that. I also love seeing some prominent Joes make at least some appearance. We have Airborne, we have Deep Six, we have Cutter. I missed having Torpedo, though. I figured with an aquatic-themed episode that, you get all the Joe Navy types involved. But instead, we get Bazooka and Alpine, and granted, on the show, Bazooka and Alpine are always more than not paired up like Laurel and Hardy or Abbott and Costello. They're just in that pantheon of great comedic duos. They're like the Cliven and Norm Peterson of G.I. Joe. You don't get one without the other. But I would like to add, I'm quite certain that the makers of this episode either saw or were familiar with The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, which is a 1953 Ray Harryhausen film based on a short story by another Ray Bradbury. And that's a movie that is a lot of fun if you've never seen it, or if you've seen it many years ago. And I have to say, I had the great honor to both meet and interview Ray Harryhausen for a magazine back in 2005. That has nothing to do with this episode. I just want to say I met Ray Harryhausen, and he was a really, really nice guy.
I support name dropping on the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Jared might as well not be the only one name dropping. That's a very nice drop. I like that. Yeah. Very good for you. I'm happy for you.
But I realized in watching this episode, and actually all the episodes of G.I. Joe that I'm rewatching, so much of my formative expectations of the world were shaped by cartoons. But as you grow up, you discover that quicksand and lava are nowhere near the clear and present danger as they are in cartoons. And other things I learned is, one, the police will not stop chasing you just because you cross the line. The county line is not a line painted on the ground. Not everybody has a parachute equipped when their minicopter or trouble bug is shot down. People do not wear the same clothes every single day. I mean, how many costume uniform changes do you think the Joes have? Do they just have a closet or a rack full of the same uniform? How many sports jerseys does Bazooka have? And all have the number 14 on them, or they just word 1 to 14? And this is just his 14th jersey. He's really, really lazy about laundry. And
well, I'm sure he's got like a row of the same exact jersey that he doesn't have to think about what he's wearing.
Yeah, they got figures like a 2 weeks of jerseys. He wears jersey 1, jersey 2, jersey 3, and then
because again, Bazooka's not the strongest thinker, so we don't want to overtax his brain cells too much.
No.
Like, okay, pick something out. No, there, you just pick one of these. They're all the same.
yeah. And lastly, of course, the lesson: Arctic timber wolves cannot break dance, no matter how motivated they are. And that's all I have to say about this episode.
So are you saying I should give up on? I've been trying to get some Timberwolves to break dance. But
That is
well, good luck. Good luck. Wear protective gear, please.
Yeah. Wear protective gear. That's never mind. Jarrod. Speaking of protective wear, I thought you said something about having some thoughts about having some paper.
Yes.
Well, let us have it.
I'll read to you now. As promised, I started this a couple episodes ago. I captured the best leadership moment of the episode, and you've already named it. When Cobra Commander says, "Say no, I want to see what happens," as your leadership moment of the episode. All right. So as the episode began, the first thing I wrote down was "Trouble Bubble, Aaron, Trouble Bubble." I was excited for you.
Thank you very much.
No problem. I wrote down, okay, the sea serpent looks awesome. Like animation wise, it's a good looking sea serpent. Then they pick up the family, and the family starts telling the story, about what happened. And in the story, there's a dog, but when they picked him up, there was no dog. So I wrote down, Bucky, no.
Bucky got 8.
Yeah, I thought he was dead, but there'll be a follow-up on that. A thing I really liked is I wrote this down. Why are they carrying Jimmy around? Jimmy's like 12 years old, but they're carrying him around like he's a baby everywhere he goes. Not so certain about that. Did we talk about Tomax and Zaymot's incredible water ski skills?
I thought about that, but forgot to notate that.
They are off the charts.
I'm sure that impressed Brad.
Shipwreck is living the life on the island, straight in his hammock with his lady friends and his drinks. Man, that's pretty sweet. I like the fact that Cobra Commander flew an actual pirate flag on his vessel. He didn't go low key at all. Just flew the Jolly Roger. Then I have Bucky, yes, because then Bucky did return. I wrote that I'm not sure what work is being done in here. I wrote down that news reporter guy, he knows his Joes, man. He literally listed off every Joe that was. He's like, I see so and so and so and so.
Yeah,
I was like, this guy knows his Joes. Did you notice how healthy Cobra eats when they're sitting around the table? It was all fruits and vegetables.
Yes,
I noticed that.
Well, Cobra's a terrorist organization, but they want to set a good impression for the young kids.
That's right.
Eat your fruits and vegetables, kids.
Eat your fruits and vegetables.
Cobra does.
Kids. Here we go. Okay, Braxton's shorts have changed color 3 times. They were blue, then they were purple, then they were white. So we had some coloring issues going on with Braxton's shorts. Let's see. I'm going to just read a quote from the show, and then we're not going to talk any more about it. Quote, okay, pal, let's ram something hot down your throat, in quote. Moving on. And this last one I really want you guys to think about. So the answer to will you work, if you say no, we saw the tentacles come, grab the trooper. No one knows what happened, right? And then the answer was no, and the claws grabbed Cobra Commander. And what did it do? It just threw him out. So apparently, if you say no, your reward is freedom. Think about that for a while. That's all I got.
Very nice. Yes, very good thoughts. I like that. So, again, it was G.I. Joe the cartoon. Like Brad said, we come to expect goofy from it. And again, that's why I get confused when people don't like G.I. Joe the movie because it was too goofy. That's what we're here for. That's the Unbelievable and, Fatal Fluffies and Cobra Law. I don't know. Anyways, but unless you gentlemen have either thoughts on either the cartoon and or the comic that we haven't mentioned yet. Jarrod, any final thoughts?
If you say no, you get freed. I just wanted to understand that one last time. No, I'm good.
Brad, any other thoughts on either the cartoon or the comic or anything else we've mentioned? The ads or anything?
Well, with the comic, I would like to say, just because issues 45, 46, and 47 are such a great run of the comic. To me, those 3 issues represent the best the comic will be for a while. At this point, things start to go a little, I don't want to say sour, but a little off for me in G.I. Joe. Like, at the time, I was all in from when I started collecting it, issue 28, but around 20 issues a month later, it wasn't becoming as big a deal for me. Not enough to kill it or my love of the series. And we'll get into that further down the road, assuming Aaron hand me my walking papers and my severance and asked me to turn in my parking pass in his driveway and my hand me the play at a watch and say thank you for your service and play me out.
And I was going to say, and anyone in the chat that wants to join in the show and take Brad's place, let me. We're opening up applications to replace Brad. I know he was supposed to replace Jarrod, but we see how that's working out. So
we're going for a 3.0 now, I guess.
The thing is, if you give me the old keel haul and you send me out the way now, you're never going to get my comments on issue 49 and Serpentor. And I know you'll be lying awake at night going, "Oh, I wish we had him around for this," because I'm sure he has something to say. So you gotta take the bad with the good with me.
Take the good with Brad. Bad, take them both, and there you go. The facts. Well,
you just said the good with the Brad.
And no, we wouldn't get rid of you, Brad. Again,
not that easily.
Not that easily. Kind of like this itch I had back in high school. Never mind. While you're talking, Brad, why don't you tell the folks out there if they want to hear more about you and see what you're doing? Where can they get a hold of you?
If they want to hear more about me and hear more controversial thoughts, they can go to my website. It's bradabraham.com. I've actually been pretty good about updating it lately. A lot of writers encourage they just stick to the social media, but in the last year I decided I wanted to focus a little more on the website. And I think I penned about 10 posts this year, which may not seem like a lot, but they're about 2,000 words each. So that's like 10 high school length essays.
Nice.
The major part of your grade. And I did a series looking at some films of the 80s and 90s over the summer. And I've looked at the music of the band Kinks. And I've also looked at some Stephen King and some Ray Bradbury. I actually did name check another Ray, one who I never met. I did read many of his books. So bradabraham.com, that's where you go.
Very nice. Good to hear. And Jarrod, the guy doing the fantastic drawing of Sergeant Slaughter, which looks very good. I like that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I love your artwork, man.
Thank you. I enjoy kind of making it part of the show now. It motivates me to do more. As usual, if you're watching this live or if you're listening to the recording, if you're interested in the Sergeant Slaughter, I'll probably have it on my website for about $30. I will knock off 5 and go 25 for anybody who's watching or listening if you want to claim it. I mean, if it's already gone by the time you claim it, that's on you. But the Sergeant Slaughter will do 25 for anybody who's watching or listening if it's still around at that time. Anyways, where would you find that? That's a good question. That would be at www.theyardsaleartist.com, or actually, it could take me a few days to upload it to the website. So just hit me up on social media. I'm at Yard Sale Artist on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And oh, by the way, if you're loving this whole G.I. Joe thing, I do a podcast over on the Long Box Crusade called G.I. Joe Chronicles The Devil's Due Years, where we're going through the Devil's Due Years, 2001 era G.I. Joe when they brought it back. And man, it has been an absolute blast. So I encourage you to check out the Long Box Crusade in general. That's at Long Box Crusade, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Check it out. And if you love the Joe, seek out that G.I. Joe Chronicles show and join me and Pat and special guests, and we'll talk some more Joe over there.
Great show.
Actually, I want to add, I am a repeat customer of the Yard Sale Artist. I purchased a beautiful Zartan drawing from Jarrod last year. And this year I bought his set of James Bond illustrations. You did a movie Bond for all 6, but on a corresponding page from a movie book that they appeared in. So you got Curry on You Only Live Twice, and you got Lazenby on Her Majesty's Secret Service, right?
Right.
Yeah. So those were actually going to be a gift for somebody, but I decided to keep them for myself because I liked them too much.
Well, you could always order another set. There's nothing stopping you.
Yes.
Thank you for your support, and thank you for the plug. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, no, Jarrod does some great work, and I love seeing his work as he's doing it on the show. It's just seeing him, turn nothing into something. It's just fantastic. That's wonderful. As far as me, you can find me on the Headcast Network. It's headcastnetwork.com. I've got my Facebook group for the Joes, which is facebook.com/groups/GI Joe. I've got my main Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/Headcast Network. For everything else I do podcast related, I've got like 1 million shows, so I'm not going to list them all here right now. But again, check out headcastnetwork.com where all my shows are at. As far as G.I. Joe, we've got this show. And then I've also got Bravo Team where I talk about anything else G.I. Joe related. The last episode of Bravo Team, we looked at G.I. Joe Yearbook number 2, me and Dr. Brainwave over there. And also the in-between weeks, since to make this a monthly show or a weekly show, I have G.I. Joe, The Adventure Continues, where me and a couple other guys get together and play the G.I. Joe role-playing game from RenegadeGameStudios.com. It's a great time. It's a great game. I definitely recommend you guys, if you haven't played it, go out and buy a copy. It's like $55, I want to say, for the book. That's a great fun. But until next month, when we cover issue 48 and the next cartoon, which I forgot to look up what it is, but there'll be another cartoon. This is Aaron Moss coming at you. Remember, knowing is half the battle. Yo, Joe.
Yo, Joe.
Yo, Joe.
Thank you guys very much. And I want to thank everyone in the studio audience for joining in. I'm going to end the broadcast. If I can get you guys to stick around for a few minutes so this can download. Thank you, everyone in the chat. And we'll talk at you soon. I'm going to end the broadcast.